Okay, hi folks. I am Matt Lisk, the host of the Interns Unplugged series for Internexus.com, where we chat with folks involved in the recruiting and onboarding of Gen Z students for internships and entry-level jobs from a variety of different industries and companies. Today, I am fortunate to have someone involved on the high school level who's helping students find great internship opportunities. Jason Gershowitz, the Internship Coordinator for the CREST program at Paradise Valley High School in the Paradise Valley Unified School District here in the greater Phoenix area. Jason, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Love to share what we do over here.
Yeah, I'm excited because this is the first conversation we've had with somebody on the high school level who's helping students find great internships. And, I think both the founder, Tausif Khan, and myself, we both have kids who are sort of high school age. And we've been struggling with hey, how do we get them out of the, supermarket jobs, those kinds of things, working at Subway. Not that those jobs are bad, not that there's anything wrong with them. It's, they're very hyper focused on what it is they want to do when they grow up. Like my son, for instance, wants to be a pilot, and he would love to have internship opportunities in, aerospace or at an airport or something along those lines. So that's why we've created Internexus to help students find those opportunities. But it sounds like you've been doing a lot of work on the high school side yourself without any sort of platform to build relationships with companies. So before we jump into sort of the story of what it is you do on a daily basis, just tell us a little bit about your professional journey, how you came to be involved with internships at CREST, and then we can talk a little bit more about the CREST program because I think it's actually pretty unique.
Absolutely. Very lucky at a young age. I knew I wanted to work with young people. So I'm kind of a lifer educator. Literally starting in high school, I started working with students, started working at schools, doing summer camps, tutoring, things like that. Then transitioned, went to college, elementary education, kind of focused more on science and social studies. I was a science social studies teacher in Paradise Valley for about 13 years. In that time, I also worked with our CREST program at the high school, teaching summer camp here. I would also, because I was a science teacher, I'd also be the one that presented it at the middle school level for students that might be interested in CREST. So I got to deal with a little bit of identifying some kids that might be interested. I got to do the summer camps. And so about 3 years ago, this position opened up and I jumped at it. I knew some people that already that were here, our principal of the Paradise Valley, as well as some of the teachers with CREST. And so it's such a unique position. It is honestly one of the funnest jobs I can imagine in education, to be really honest, because it's all support. It's all helping these students, achieve the things that they want to achieve, their dreams. We work with a very unique set of students here. CREST is an application-based honors program, so they have to apply to get into it. And so a lot of our students are, the brightest of the bright. We pull from all over the city. So we have about half of our students are open enrolled. So that means they might live in Mesa and come all the way to Phoenix. And so we've got a very diverse group of students also, both through the Valley, economic, ethnic also. And so that's a big part of our program. And, again, I made the switch kind of from a classroom teacher now over to this more of basically a support position. And so what I do is I do basically all the work-based learning. And so for freshmen and sophomores, that would be, resume writing, interviewing, networking, how to use different platforms to search for stuff. So I'm sure a lot of the same stuff that you guys do is kind of what I do. I have to give a lot of credit to both my predecessor because I stepped into a role with, quite a wealth of internships and knowledge that she had given. But most importantly, it's our kids. Our students do such an amazing job in these internships that when I do my exit visit, one of my questions is, would you like any more interns? And they say, how many do you have? How many? It is honestly a testament to our students. My list literally grows year in and year out. We do have some unique things in that a lot of our programs have what we call dual enrollment, which means they are taking a high school class, but it's actually also worth a college credit. So Our teachers have to be certified for that. But again, it
Yep.
does allow them to kind of get a foot up. And then with the internships, that allows them to get in some college level internships too, because they are legitimately a college student. They're enrolled in college. They haven't declared a major.
Oh, interesting. That's actually a very interesting wrinkle.
Absolutely.
That's really
And
cool. Keep going.
and
Sorry.
this is no like, under the table stuff. This is all college
Right.
told us, hey, no, this is why we do that. This is what it does. And again, a testament to that is the teachers. You know, we have very high rigor. Lots of schools can have rigor, but I think what separates us is we have so much application. Our labs are literally college level and above labs. So our
Mhm.
bioscience is a level 1 bio lab, like literally the highest you can have without your own air infiltration system. Our comp science students, when they come in as freshmen, they start earning college credits that first semester because
Wow.
of that. Engineering, more towards your sophomore or junior years when you start to get your college credit. But through both comp science and engineering, we have certifications that they earn along the way. So for engineering, things like Revit and SolidWorks, so they get their computer aided design. And then for
Uh-huh.
comp science, everything from various languages to security protocols and things like that. So
Wow.
again, our students step to these internships with obviously some of the college credits or at least college classes they're in, but they
Yep.
also have the skills that they need too. One of the things that we really look for in CREST and with internships is something called H3: high demand, high skill, high wage. And so, again, if you think about engineering, comp science, and bioscience, they all kind of lead hopefully to those jobs. Um, and again, part of my job is helping the students figure out what areas do they want to go into. I give a lot of personal anecdotes. I was in college for 6.5 years, not because I was a bad student, because I switched majors like 5 times. Knew I wanted to work with young people, but just there were so many different avenues to do that. In high
Right.
school, I didn't have the opportunity to go try child psychology, try go being a teacher. With our program, it's all about that. Let's get those kids in an aerospace engineer. Let's get those kids in a security, comp science security internship. So they get to see before they make this, huge, jump into the next 4, 6, 8 years of their life. Is this something I really want to do? Is the expectations of this career what I think they are?
Yeah. And that, as I'm listening to you talk, I realized my junior, who actually is in the Paradise Valley Unified School District, had considered going into the CREST program, decided not to apply because none of his friends were going. I think he's going to now hear this interview and regret his choices, to be honest with you, because when kids have a direction, right, and they
Mhm.
have a passion,
Yep.
they're all in, right? Like they jump into things with both feet. Like so, if a kid's studying computer science, they're at home, they're coding. They game, and of course
Yep.
but they write code too, right? And so they're really passionate about it, and this is an opportunity for them to monetize that, to
Yep.
learn more, to develop those skills. So this is an amazing program. It's unique in Arizona, right? There's not too many programs like Crest, right?
You know, I've the director and I both came on together about 3 years ago, and so we've done a
Okay.
lot of like review and search. And no, what
Yeah.
I'd say is most unique is the fact that we have all three strands together, so they
Right.
get some interdisciplinary work. A lot of our
Hmm.
seniors, especially comp science and engineering, will do projects as their senior capstone together. They might build a robot from engineering and then they might program it. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. We do see some individual programs. I've seen some engineering programs other places or some comp science. I'd say comp science is probably the most common throughout, the state, but nobody really has the three of them combined. Rarely do I see the amount of dual enrollment classes. Sometimes they will have them, but we just have such a good relationship with Maricopa County Community Colleges, PVC
Hmm.
in particular, because they're just down the
Yep.
street.
Yeah.
I think those are probably like the uniquest things about it. And then again, I've never seen, and we search for this, including private schools, never really seen like quite the lab levels that we have and stuff too.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Everything from, obviously like our bioscience lab is, big and a lot of unique things in there. But honestly, just with the amount of equipment and access that we have in our comp science and with our engineering, we're instituting a whole new class, which is like a sustainability in engineering. and we've been just hauling in boxes and supplies. So, we're very well supported by the district. CREST is what we call a CTE class, which is Career
Right.
Technology Education. In the past, that had been more vocational things, and we still have those because
Right.
we still need those jobs. But CREST was
Yeah.
really created for, what are the students in the CTE though that we know are going to 4 year or 6 year going, continuing with their
Right.
education. And so it's really nice to kind of be part of that CTE too, because a lot of times I find things for everybody. So, for
Right.
instance, with Honeywell, one of our amazing partners came on last year, I've got things for our engineers, but then I also have some manufacturing jobs for our welding students or for our automotive students. So that's been another like really joyful thing for me is obviously I'm always helping our CREST kids and I love that, but to be able to help all of them, because what I always tell our CREST kids are, I wasn't smart enough to get into CREST. I would have been some of the other ones. I said, I was a good student. I said, but our students literally, I mean, the abilities, I mean, our students' biggest complaints lately has been that they need to find a fine arts and a PE credit that are honors so it doesn't bring down their 5.0s. And I tell them, if that's your biggest worry, we're going to be all right. We'll be fine.
That's
Uh,
great. That is
so
great.
again, it's a very unique group of kids that really, I joke with them. I said, you guys do some of my work for me because you do so well, and people hear about you. There are advocates out there in the business world and the community. They help our enrollment. We
Yeah.
have about almost a 3-to-1 ratio basically of applications to acceptance. And I tell the kids, I'm like, that's because you guys just do such a good job. When I meet with these mentors, if they've got kids, they want to know about the CREST program. I can't tell you how many
Right.
tours I've given to mentors because they're like, I want our kids to go there too. So it's
Yeah.
very wonderful. It's really nice.
It's such a great program. And so you touched on, the relationship with employers. So I'm curious to know, how do you go and find those opportunities on behalf of kids? You're developing relationships with, it sounds like a portfolio of companies, but talk a little bit more about that and the process and how that unfolded.
So when I came in, we had probably a resource of, I'd say, maybe 50 past internships that we'd had in the past. So obviously that was wonderful. I came into that. What I will say is that post COVID, a lot of things had changed.
Mm.
Some of them were, because again, I came in 3 years ago, so kind of right post COVID. So
Right,
some of
right.
them had changed. Some of them were going, back to in person versus virtual. And honestly, what I saw was a huge, just the job shift. A lot of the contacts I had were just moving to different positions.
Mhm.
There's a lot of stuff in the news about that, about people kind of re-identifying their jobs and careers and stuff. So I did have
Yeah.
that nice list. Then from there, I meet with the students. So I do presentations to them as a whole, kind of give them the whole lowdown. Then I meet with each one individually, and we work together to try to find different opportunities. So a lot of what I teach kids, I'm doing at the exact same time with them. So we may
Oh.
be on Indeed looking for something for, bioinformatics. That's when I was working with a student. So a student is bioscience student, but has a love of computer science. So he said bioinformatics should be perfect. Take bio data and then run different programs and different things like that. And so that's kind of and then I basically just cold call them. I sometimes will look. Um, some of our students will have internships that they bring to me, and so then that my goal is to just kind of vet it and see how it goes. But that then of course is a possibility for an internship the next year. So
Right,
it's
right.
lots of different stuff. I would say the last year and a half I've been big into. I also do our field trips and our guest speakers. So
Oh,
as I
cool.
look for those, opportunities arise. So, we had a field trip to SRP to a substation to see
Mm.
kind of like how the electricity gets like dialed up and dialed down and all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they had not actually had an internship program post COVID, but got friendly with them, started talking to them. We had a student do it last year. So good. They now have opened the program back up completely. They always keep 1 or 2 spots for us, but now there's spots for multiple people too. And so it's a great example of something our student did that's now benefiting kids that they'll never meet. The internship
Right. Yeah.
SRP now is, aside from the CREST kids are going to do it, also
Right.
opening up that program for other students.
Yeah.
So there's some of that. I try to find lots of like organizations. So for instance, the last couple of years I've gone to Arizona Construction Days, which is an
Mm,
amazing day down at the Air Force Base, kind of like on the other side of the airport. And it's like it's the entire runway, and it's actually gone onto another runway now.
wow.
Just any job you can think in construction, but it's all interactive, which is really fun. So they've got a underwater welder that you play tic-tac-toe with through like a glass window. You've got
Very cool.
masonry competitions to see who can build the strongest wall. So the kids actually get to do stuff and see if it's a job and get some cards and get some, so that'll be something we take our juniors to next year, because boom, they've got a runway full of possible internships right there.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
There's another good one coming up, I think, next week. The Arizona Aerospace Association.
Ah, okay.
Aerospace is a keyword. I would say
Yeah, for
4
sure.
years. It's been
Yeah.
aerospace and AI have probably been like the two.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yep.
And to be honest, those are both not the easiest to get students into. Aerospace in particular, aerospace, obviously, if it's government stuff, sometimes you've got, restrictions with that. Sometimes
Yeah.
students do have to sign NDAs. I've had to sign NDAs to go on tours of certain things. I
Amazing.
go to Honeywell testing site, and I got to see how they test like temperatures and stuff. Um,
Yeah,
and so, again, that's the fun part for me is I get to see all the cool stuff, and I get to go on all the cool tours that the kids are doing. And
that's
so
awesome.
that's a big part of it, is just kind of like the general networking, having the students, bring me stuff that they've got. I'd say, I have about 150 students a year that I like monitor and with the internships. And one of the
Yeah,
important things too is that I do not place them in any internships. I help them with everything else. I told them I just can't go on the interview with you, and
right.
I can't accept you. I said, but other than that, I do anything that they need. And so as they, apply for them, again, I'd say maybe out of that 150, I'd say maybe 30 or 40 of them will bring me opportunities. And then I'd say maybe, another 60 of them we work together, and then another 60 may just kind of, again, use that past list that we've got too.
Mhm.
So it's nice
Yeah,
because I've kind of got everything for the different abilities. We're very flexible, which is nice in terms of what we can accept. The Arizona Department of Ed is really just, looking for strong mentorship, use of skills. Really, they need to learn outside of the classroom. That's really what the
right.
main distinguishing mark of it is. And so, lots of different ways. I would definitely say, advice for other internship coordinators, organizations, just literally do Arizona Aerospace Organization, Arizona AI Association. Like literally just start
Right.
Googling like the name of the thing and the state you live in, and just
Yeah.
winning those things and getting invited to stuff. And then, you get up, and if you're outspoken, and again, we have such a wonderful program with such great, recommendations from the past, that companies just kind of start to approach me. It's wonderful.
That is amazing. Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit, but as you're sort of interacting with these companies, how do you ensure that a student gets a meaningful internship, right? I know a lot of students struggle with this. Like, it sounds good as part of the interview process. Then you get there and you're like, kind of doing busy work and it's not really advancing your knowledge of the industry or of the job. So what kind of things do you look for as you talk to companies that say, oh, wow, this is going to be a really good thing for my kids?
So, one of the things is honestly when I present to the parents and kids, first off, is we address that like number one, and that this is
Right.
not what it should be.
Yeah.
If this happens to you, you need to let me know immediately. I will handle it. I'm
Yeah.
not going to put you in any bad things. So that's honestly a part of it right out the bat. And then really from there, it's just talking with them and showing them our paperwork and them seeing that like these students are skilled. I always tell them, you may make copies or coffee. It shouldn't be your primary goal. I say,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Of
everybody's got
course.
to do some of that. So
Yeah.
then a lot of it also is just kind of showing them what our students have done. So most of the companies we're approaching won't. They'll want to use them for what they basically have better use for them. You know what I mean? They literally are not going to have them do copies and coffee, because they can actually do a CAD drawing. They can actually
Right.
run some, troubleshooting on a server and stuff. So I honestly think that helps a little bit. Then I'd say my last kind of like resort with it is that I do my, I do both virtual and in person site visits and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then the last thing the kids do for me is they do a 5 to 7 minute summary video, and they submit that into our little Google Classroom and stuff. That video is twofold. First off, it's a really great thing for them. It's a reflection piece. They really look back on it. I have them talk about some of like the intangibles and stuff. But most importantly, I use that to revet all of our internships. So right now, as my juniors are looking at that spreadsheet, I'm actually also watching my seniors' videos and adding comments to them, little things, because one of the questions the seniors are asked, what advice do you have for a student that might want to do this? And so they can really dial it in. So not only does that help us avoid, again, busy work, but it also
Right.
gives the student a much better description from someone else their age in that strand of what that internship's going to be like. I always describe, another one I describe to kids is, I wanted to be an oceanographer until 8th grade. We did the oceanography trip in 8th grade. I realized you don't get to be on a boat all day. And so
Yeah.
for other kids, I said, it's different. We talk about workplace culture and pay attention to that. I tell the kids, look for the person that's been with the company the oldest. Look at the person that just signed up. I said, get those perspectives from people. So we really haven't had that problem very often. Again, some of that is also just me vetting and stuff. Ahead, if a student's bringing me an internship, so it's something new to us, obviously have the conversation, with the person. What's nice is most of the internships that are brought to me are more of like kind of family type friend networking. And those opportunities honestly end up being some of the best, because they kind of work loopholes around them and stuff. They figure out ways. We had a student get to work with a Arizona Supreme Court judge this year. He couldn't
Wow.
be a page because of his age.
Right.
So they just created a junior page for him. There is
Oh.
literally nobody else that's a junior page except him, but they had to put something on his badge, and he
Right.
got to do all that cool stuff. So a lot of times when students are bringing me things, they tend to be rather exceptional too.
Right.
Otherwise, they would go with our list, which again, I vet yearly based on that stuff too, because who their manager might change and stuff. I'd say the bigger companies, their continuity tends to stay the same, say like a Honeywell, versus our smaller companies, which students are interested in. They tend to have a little bit more of a change, and I tend to look at them a little bit closer. That's literally one of the questions I'll ask the students. Are you somebody that wants to be an entrepreneurial? And so maybe I hook you up with a smaller manufacturing company that's family run, or do you want to be a cog in a huge corporation like Honeywell? And we've got that for them too. So that's part of what I work with the kids too, is just figure out, where their interest is with that too.
That's great. So you mentioned a lot of success stories in the program. Is there one that stands out to you that, like, if you were going to walk around and just advertise the program with one example, is there one that really sticks out to you as like, hey, I didn't know where this was going and it turned out to be amazing?
We've had lots. To kind of kick back on you, we've had quite a few students get their pilot's license for their internship.
Oh, nice.
That was a really fun one. One in particular, so this was before I got here, so I can't take a lot of credit for this, but I had this student in middle school, and I encouraged him. So I said, you should check out CREST. So he came to CREST. And so he, as a junior and senior, worked with a tech company to create a contact lens that would read your blood sugar level and then send it in real time and then send it to your pump. So this was a passion of his, because he was a type 1 diabetic. So he lived his whole life. And so he got to work on that. And then he is literally continuing working on it today, while he's now pursuing, he's in his 6th year, I think, down at U of A. And so we actually get to see him when we go down there for competitions with our HOSA group that goes down there. So that was one that's really cool, because I've known the kid. I've stayed in touch with him. And again, getting to see him. And I would say it's frequent that our students do things that have some type of personal component to it. Especially bioscience. Other strands do too. We've seen some cool like prosthetics and stuff come out of engineering and things like that. But in
Yep.
particular, I think with bioscience, you see a lot of, this is something that happened in my family. Or one thing I will say about all three of our strands that makes me very hopeful for the future is there's a lot of like environmental type stuff. There's a lot
Right.
of like, how do we do things better? How do we,
Yeah.
even with comp science, how do we use computations to be more efficient stuff? And, as a lifelong science teacher, as a tree hugger himself, it
Yeah.
was wonderful. I mean, it's part of why I wanted to be a teacher was to help educate students so they would be good citizens and good stewards of the planet. And it has been wonderful seeing both their internships, their senior capstones, or even just, we do a lot of student based interest learning. So, while we have a project that they do, the way in which they get to that end result, there's a lot of flexibility for them to really research and dive into those topics that they feel passionate about.
That's great. And I think an environment like Arizona, you've been here. It sounds like your whole life. You were born and raised here. Is that
Well,
true?
I lived in New York till I was 13, but
Oh, okay.
so I have a little bit of an East Coast perspective, but yeah,
Yeah. Same here.
43, 44. So, I mean, I've been here the majority of my life for sure.
Yeah. So, and I think it's funny. I have East Coast roots too. I was born and raised in New Jersey and moved out here maybe 13 years ago. But there are things specific to Arizona. Like if you drive around here, you see tons of cranes, right? So there's lots of building going on, right? And I always, my wife laughs because I always make the comment like, "Where's all the water coming from?" Right? And so, because we're in a desert. But it sounds like there are kids that are probably freshmen or sophomores in the CREST program who are also thinking about these kinds of things, like where would water come from with all this new construction? And the CHIPS Act brought, the huge plants, where they're developing microprocessors and all kinds of computer chips and that kind of stuff. And so, there's things that are unique to Arizona that, kids can jump in and tackle, and the companies are more than willing to bring them into the solution, which is, it's awesome. It gives me hope for the future generations, right? Like they're going to solve things that really make a difference to people that live here, which is awesome.
Yep. Really have an
Very
impact on
cool.
the future. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No
Give
doubt.
you another a short, interesting internship, just kind of
Sure.
piggybacks. So I had a student come to me and said, "Can I do real estate for my internship?" I said, "Okay." I said,
Interesting.
"Let's keep going. Let's keep going. What do you
Yeah.
want to do?"
Yeah.
And so this student found an ex-baseball player who is specifically in industry, so industrial real estate, but
Okay.
specifically buildings that have cooling so they can have biomedical research there. So,
Wow. Okay.
so he's a bioscience student.
Yep.
He's tying that in with his interest in real estate. And
Yep.
this guy's a very successful real estate. His office was the Biltmore and stuff. It was beautiful, beautiful.
Okay.
And so they
Yeah.
specialize in basically real estate that has that ability to have, biochemical labs there. And so I, of course, said yes for this because
Right.
such a unique thing. Again, the student brought it to me, so we've already got interest, and he's learning. I talked with his mentor, and by the end of it, because he's done now, his mentor talked about there were so many things that he was able to bring to the table because of his work in a lab that the other guy just wouldn't have thought of. He came
Right.
from, he was a baseball player, but obviously he had a finance degree, and he was a smart
Right.
person. He's very
Yeah.
successful. But again, he was just able to open up so many type things, like access to water or backup generators or
Right.
just a lot of intangibles that he saw because he worked in a lab that a
Yeah.
baseball player with a finance degree is just not going to think about because they didn't have that same
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
So,
Almost a match made in heaven, right?
and
Yeah.
it's things like that that I can present to our business partners
Right.
to help us get more internships. Our kids,
Yeah.
yes, you're going to teach our kids, but they will always benefit you in some way. And it's also good promotion for the companies too. We
Yeah.
give them a waiver and stuff, so the students can have their picture taken, parents sign it, stuff like that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
the goal of CT is it should benefit the community, the businesses, and obviously the students. And so we partner with that kind of stuff. We had Honeywell come in and do a glider thing, and so we had Honeywell engineers teach our juniors and sophomores. We then had them leave, the engineers, and then we brought over a middle school and had our students teach the middle school kids how to build the gliders. And then we had a big day where we did competitions and things like that. So
That's
Honeywell
great.
gives us internships. We give them a ton of promotion.
Right.
I'm always very aware of that. Like, I want to do a thing at the end of the year, hopefully this year, where we send it out to our whole Paradise Valley Unified District, where we thank all these companies and just say, hey, if you ever need this or that, realize that these are all companies that gave to our district, spent time with our students. So we're always very, thankful to them and looking to help them in any way possible and stuff too.
That's great.
Very
Integrating the employers into the curriculum is actually really just a brilliant way to sort of get exposure, even for the kids that aren't going on to internships, right? That are just, hey, I learned how to make a glider today. Like, I would have loved to sit through that class, to be honest with you. It would be amazing.
Get outside, a lot of trial and error and stuff. And,
Yeah,
if you finished early, you decorate it, so I mean,
right, yeah.
It's a lot, very unique differences too. Like, kids build them, but then they have to explain, like, why did you do that nose shape? What did you
Yeah.
do from that and stuff? So,
Yep.
It's not like a piece of paper where you're having to answer the questions. It's much more of these interactive kind of, almost a Socratic seminar type learning, which is great. And again, if kids can teach other kids, that's always our goal. That's the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy, is the ability to repeat and teach others as opposed to just memorization.
That's great. So you mentioned some tools that you use, like Indeed and other things. Like, tell me sort of how you go about preparing the student. Like you said earlier, you're not in the interview, right? But you can take them all the way up, right? So talk about like resume prep or interview prep, or sort of like what steps do you take to help the students really prepare?
One of the things I do is I also just make sure I'm just really up to date on stuff. So, for instance, Honeywell's been doing the last couple nights these resume like virtual seminars for our students.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I posted that obviously in my Google Classroom for the kids so they can join if they need help. But then I just make sure I meet one of those too, and I take my little notes and stuff for that. So part of it is that I think that these things change, and you need to be like aware of that. Just in my 3 years, my first year, it was still kind of the idea of everybody wanted a very similar format. Now what I'm hearing, especially I would say from like engineering and stuff, is spruce it up a little bit, show us some creativity and stuff. So whether it's that, teaching the kids how to do that without taking away from the information on, say, the resume or the introductory letter. Also, I think expanding what they think people want to see on there. They tend to just focus on academics, and so and again, they have great academics, so it makes sense. But I try to focus on how do you differentiate yourself? What are the personal things? What are the personal anecdotes? I always tell the kids that, we have some kids that we call box checkers, and so they'll join 15 clubs and they only show up like once a month each one. But I say that's not necessarily bad. Sometimes it's better to show that you stuck with something, and it shows that there's this emphasis. So, I'll have a student say, well, I've done dance for 12 years, but why do they care? I'm applying for a computer science internship. Well, first off, this paints a picture of you outside of comp science. Who knows if that interviewer, their daughter might also do dance. So you might be making an unintentional connection that will keep you fresh in their mind. And most importantly, you did it for 12 years. That's the majority of your life. That shows you with it, that shows you went to it, that shows commitment, that shows passion. So with our students, that's a big thing. I think sometimes is helping them fill themselves out on that resume to really show who they are as a person. Same thing with the interviews. So I just helped a student yesterday. We focus on things like kind of trying to find themes that you can come back to. So we also do like a lot of prep. We have a lot of kids that get like, they have to do interviews for scholarships and stuff. We have a Flynn scholarship where they actually try to get talent and keep them in Arizona by giving them full rides. So we have 2 students right now that have made it to the next level. And so that's what we kind of focus with them. What are some things in their lives that are these kind of themes that they can come back to? And so one student was really about basically like helping underprivileged people in particular, and served groups, and has a history of things he's already done that do that. And so we kind of teach them how do you do that stuff. And then again, how you do those kind of self anecdotes of personal experience instead of just, I like computers or I built the computer. How do you break that down? For my 7th birthday, my dad bought me my first Raspberry Pi, and that led me. So, how do you make it much more personal so that way, again, you kind of stick in that reviewer's mind? What
Yeah.
what I tell the kids is like, your resume is kind of like the stats on your baseball card. They're pretty black and white. They're important, but they're like not going to really get much like across other than what it is. And
Right.
honestly, a lot of our students, because the internships they're applying for, they're applying against college level students.
Yep.
They're going to also have pretty good looking resumes too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So sometimes we focus a little bit more on either the introductory email or like the
Hmm.
letter or
Yeah.
the interview, because I tell them, I said, now you're in the door. Now it's about differentiating. It's fine to
Right.
reserve back to stuff. I said, but have it be more anecdotal. They know you already took computer science 201 that's a dual credit. But what
Right.
happened in that class that is something that you can relate that was either success or struggle. So that's one of the things I do, is try to keep them with that stuff. Myself, I'm a very good talker. So I also tell them that, like, I know for me, I need to try to keep things a little bit more concise. And if I go off on an anecdote, I need to make sure that I then wrap it up and bring it back around. So, I
Yeah.
model with the kids that like, this is something that I still work on when I go, do meetings and meet people and
Yeah.
present and stuff too. So I think that also helps get some of the, worry and nerves out of them. That's a big thing. Literally, the guy yesterday said, that's really all I'm worried about. I got all this stuff. I'm ready to go. And so I told him, I said,
Yeah.
well, I sometimes will just do a couple push-ups. I said, and I said, you don't want to get all disheveled. I said, but you just
Yeah.
burn off that energy. I said, I'm going to get a good night's sleep the night before. I'm going to probably go work out the night before. So that way I burn off any extra energy. So,
Yeah.
again, a lot of it's kind of more of like the intangible stuff and helping kids think about things that they don't think about. And
Yeah.
when I talk to them with networking, when I just did my presentation, I say, you don't know who you know. And what I mean by that is until you put it out there that you're a bioscience student looking for an internship, you might have an aunt that is like a vice president of mail for all you know. I said,
Yeah. Right.
until those things get out there, you just don't know. I said, there's so many opportunities. And that's why we would never limit them just to our list,
Right.
because part of the process is finding, applying, and doing all those things. On our list, you still do those things. But like I told the one student is, you're not necessarily applying against 100 other people. They know you're coming from
Right.
the press. So, but it's good
Yeah.
too, because it doesn't mean they're not going to do good in the interview. It just
Right.
means that hopefully it lowers their stress a little bit.
Yeah. That's amazing. And those skills carry over. I've had the opportunity in my career to be around some pretty remarkable people, and one of them was Sal Khan, who started Khan Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was telling us a story about how he used to prepare for conversations, interviews, even when he was shooting just videos to put on the website to teach kids how to do algebra or whatever. He would do I think it was 10 push-ups and drink 2 raw eggs. And we were like, it sounds like something straight out of Rocky, right? Like, but there are those things that people do that you wouldn't think of, but like could be useful to a student as they're sort of what I'm so anxious getting on a camera. I think that that's happened since since COVID. We were talking about COVID earlier. This remote workforce and all these things, like kids need to develop those skills as public speakers, right? Because now you're on cameras like this all the time. And so, those are the kinds of things that like you don't really think of, but you're like are really important in making an impression, right? So, very, very cool things that kids are learning throughout this entire process. What I'd ask you is if another school came to you and said, hey, we want to build out a program similar to yours, like where do they start? It's like really sort of this has been it sounds like a labor of love even from before your time with your predecessor. So where would they start? How would they go about doing this?
I learned a bunch about this year about kind of how everything came to be. And so basically, they wrote a proposal to the district, basically kind of outlining, CREST is about 14 years old. It didn't necessarily start with the 3 strands. We had bioscience, and then we had kind of a sustainability, and I think a comp science, and the sustainability kind of turned engineering. So it definitely, the first couple of years were kind of a work in progress, kind of figuring out. But the initial thing was pretty much just presented as, like I said before, a CT program. So there you kind of had like where the funding would come from, but also like the idea of it being very heavy work-based learning, very certified based. One of the things we throw around a lot is industry leading education. And
Yeah.
so, meeting those needs of industry. So that's why we have all of our business partners come in every 3 months and talk with us about stuff. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing is, initially you just need to kind of figure out in your district, in your school, are they willing to support the program? It's a
Yep.
huge financial investment initially, especially because of the labs and stuff. But
Right.
honestly, it doesn't necessarily get a whole lot cheaper because I would say our disposables in bioscience, I mean, it's into the tens of thousands of dollars
Right.
because
Yeah.
you're using, again, a level 1 bio lab. So you've
Right.
got cultures and different types of broths and mediums and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things is just that initial kind of cost. I mean, we literally built the building on this campus, built the laboratories, and then, now we're, up and running and expanding to where now we have 2 teachers for each of the strands. So I would say that's, definitely CT makes most sense in terms of where it would place within a district.
Yeah.
And then I would say a lot of it too would be just starting to try to create relationships, maybe, on the large front. Look for, like Honeywell has somebody that's head of their educational outreach, and that's who I work with. She's been so amazing with us because not only is, again, she helped the CREST program, but she's now partnering, or I should say Honeywell is partnering with us as a whole district. And they're going to start to do pipelines at our middle school with the hope of going all the way down to elementary school, which is
That's amazing.
such a huge component to get this type of CT, college stuff, career stuff into those early years. So that way we can identify, I shouldn't even say identify the kids, so the kids can identify their interest and they can
Right.
start to
Yeah.
figure out what they want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's really the biggest thing is just kind of finding, where you start getting the support from the district. And then, once you make those connections with some of those companies, they're always willing to give out, money and things and stuff too.
Yeah.
If not money, usually supplies. TGen is this amazing company downtown, translational genetics. And, they just have like a ton of bioscience stuff that just ages out, like beakers and stuff like that.
Right.
Because,
Yeah.
they've got, all kinds of certain restrictions on stuff because of their testing.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
when we go down there for our field trip, we always have to have like a couple seats open and we just fill us up with that. So,
That's amazing.
we are Arizona and educational funding is definitely an issue. What I
Oh, for
would
sure.
say is exactly, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Especially coming from back east. I mean, I'd say that's probably one of the biggest differences that I've seen
Yeah.
back east from here is that
Yeah.
support. I mean, especially coming from New York to Arizona, it's a pretty dramatic difference.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that CT tends to have some of the most support because people can see exactly where you're getting your reward. They see, oh,
Yeah.
this goes directly into that.
Yeah.
And what's really nice about CT2 is because they're not, say, like a senior English class, if you wanted to make a change to senior English, you're making a change to senior English for the entire state of Arizona.
Right.
If we make a change to one of our bioscience classes, it just affects our students. So
Right.
we can, on the fly, change things. That's how we're changing that one class into more of a sustainability and engineering.
Yeah.
That's how we were able to incorporate more AI into our comp science. That's how we were able to work with Embry-Riddle to get some more engineering stuff for aerospace because there's so much interest in that.
Yeah.
And so, it really kind of, feeds itself. Once you kind of get up and running, you've got those connections with people. They'll connect you with other people. They might go to, again, some of these groups and organizations. They'll suggest, hey, why don't you come to this so we can talk about it? And
Yeah.
honestly, Heather Cohn from Honeywell and I, we've gotten to do that quite a few times. We've actually even gotten to get in a couple situations where there's kind of some tense stuff between like legislators and businesses and education. And we've gotten to stand up and say, well, we actually have this wonderful working relationship that's continually expanding. It meets the needs of our high achieving students all the way down to, our students that we're just hoping to graduate. And so, it really just starts to kind of self-perpetuate itself. Um, Great contact is, and it's a new person now. I don't know who the new person is, but my first week on the job, I received a phone call from the head of Arizona Economic Opportunity. And basically, he said, "We've heard about CREST and the TSMC, the microchip plant, is going to
Yeah,
be
right.
interns." Now, the bad news is that they're still not ready for interns because I check every other month. I have
Do you?
for the last 3 years because I want kids in there so bad.
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
there's a little bit of stick-to-itiveness, and I like one of the things that's really cool about my position is I'm really meant to be like a real person to the kids, and what I mean by
Yeah,
that is like really share like my job with them and like the struggles
right,
I have because we're all doing the same stuff. I'm not
right.
going on an interview, but I'm going on an interview for our kids.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
um,
Yeah,
when I first took this job, they said, how do you feel about cold calling people? And I said, well, I've done telemarketing and I hated it and I didn't feel like a good person afterwards. That's
yeah,
not this. I am
yeah,
offering you an opportunity to work with some of the best and brightest students in this nation, if not state.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and so it's a very different thing. Like I have so much to show and so much confidence in our students that I've never been put in a situation in front of a business owner. Again, somebody huge like Honeywell or a family owned company where I was
Right.
more confident in our students.
That's awesome. Jason, I really appreciate your time today. I know you've got other stuff, we're catching you right in the middle of the school day. I'm sure you've got other stuff you got to run off to, but let me just ask you any final thoughts, anything you want to plug, feel free.
Yeah. Just our CREST program over here. CREST is Paradise Valley High School is the hub for all of CTE. That's why CREST is here. So one of the
Yeah,
great things about coming here is not just our CREST program, but we have layered CT programs in things like automotive, culinary arts. And what's great is just like the CREST program, where you kind of dip your toe in, and then if you really like it, you can continue. So for culinary arts, I tell the kids, you take the freshman level, so that way you know how to cook an egg when you're in college. But if
right.
they love it, they do catering for the district by level 4. Um, Fashion design, learn how to sew a button, save money in college. If you love it, you're doing things like embroidering for the whole district. And
Right.
like they do full, mock-ups of, the prices and things like that. And so I love CT. Again, it's something I missed out on, when I was in
Yeah,
high school.
yeah, for
But it
sure.
definitely saved me some college time and money. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I love about being part of that program and Paradise Valley as a whole. There's a very specific reason CREST is here at PV High School. And it's because we really that's our whole thing. And so again, it's really nice for me because I can find opportunities for our non-CREST kids at the exact same time. Our offices are
Yeah,
right here.
right.
It's just very, very enjoyable. It's a very rewarding career to get to see these kids do this stuff. Very lucky.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool. Jason, I'd love to talk to you all day. I mean, if you have the availability, I think we only scratched the surface. I think
Yeah,
there's other things we can certainly learn.
really.
So, but thanks again for your time. I know, like I said, we caught you in the middle of the day, and you're a very busy person. So we really appreciate you carving out some time to spend with us,
Wonderful. A lot of fun.
and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Have a good one.